expect you to read them, and also as a teenager, someone with 3 teenagers at home, I'm still indeed digesting the messages we just heard from the Israeli teenagers. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Edita. Thank you, Bagatti. It's an honor for me to speak here in front of so many really dedicated professionals who care all about the same thing, protection of children. Antonio Guterres had a reason to insist on the necessity of peace at the UN General Assembly 2 weeks ago. We currently see the highest number of conflicts in the world since the Second World War. And as a result, almost 19% of children in the world live in an area affected by conflict. So that is within 50 kilometers of an area where fighting takes place. Overall, no less than 2/3 of the world's children live in a country affected by conflict. And those conflicts are deadly for children. According to UNICEF, more than 20,000 children have been killed in Gaza since October 23. Those conflicts deprive children of their most basic needs. In Sudan, about 3 million children suffer from malnutrition. Those conflicts expose children to high risks of violence, of sexual violence. The most alarming figures, especially for girls, come from Haiti, Nigeria, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And those conflicts leave behind grief and deep emotional scars. 1 in 5 children in Ukraine report having lost a close relative or a friend in the war. Just like the United Nations, we have it twice. Just like the United Nations, the Council of Europe was founded in the aftermath of the Second World War. We foster human rights, democracy, and the rule of law on the continent for all Europeans, including children. And we do this by providing a platform for governments, all 46 member states, to agree on common legal standards, such as the Lanzarote Convention on the Protection of Children from Sexual Exploitation and Abuse, or guidelines on child-friendly justice. We monitor and enforce the implementation of these standards by governments, most powerfully by the European Court of Human Rights. And we provide technical assistance. For example, we support the establishment of Barnabas systems, or we help Ukraine to reform its laws to better protect children from exploitation, abuse, and trafficking. The overall aim is preserving peace. And when we fail, which unfortunately happens, rebuilding it. Today, I'd like to focus on the children affected by the war in Ukraine, our member state, which feels very, very close here in Vilnius. Since the full-scale aggression by Russia against Ukraine, over 3,000 children have been injured or killed. Around 20,000 have been deported, reportedly, to Russia, Belarus, or the Russian-occupied territories of Ukraine. And millions are internally displaced or have fled the country, such as the many tens of thousands of children who found refuge here in Lithuania. But all these are just numbers. So what does it really mean to be a child in times of war? I'd like to share with you some voices of children, messages we heard during our consultations with children of Ukraine from their parents and guardians. This quote is from a boy, barely a teenager, who traveled alone for 2 days before crossing into Czechia. He had no map, no adults to guide him, no idea what waited for him on the other side of the border. He carried only a backpack, fear and hope that someone would care. And someone did. Local NGOs offered him shelter, volunteers gave him warm clothes, he was connected to psychological support and a language course. And slowly he rebuilt a sense of belonging. For him, making friends and finding trusted adults made all the difference. To make such stories a more common experience for children of Ukraine arriving in other European states, the Council of Europe established a consultation group on the children of Ukraine. Here, government officials from almost all the member states, including, of course, from Ukraine, get together regularly to learn from each other and ensure that the decisions about children of Ukraine are based on up-to-date information, international standards, and the best interest of the child. A focus of this group is trauma-informed care. You, as professionals working on children's physical and mental health, know that this is essential to address the emotional scars that war has left on these children. But from a Council of Europe perspective, from a political perspective, more than that, we believe that also at a societal level, a trauma-informed approach is a precondition to any sustainable reconstruction and recovery. When we realized that many frontline professionals in our member states working with these children lack the knowledge about trauma-informed care, we developed manuals and training courses specifically targeted at those working with these children in classes. Please reach out if you want to have more information about this work. But the group also focuses on other issues, for example, education. When the Russian aggression against Ukraine began, most refugee children simply continued learning online through Ukraine's education system. That was in February 22, so they had just come out of the last COVID winter. No surprise to you as experts on children's mental health, online schooling of course did not meet these children's needs, neither from an educational point of view, nor, more importantly, in terms of their emotional and social development. It also, we learned, exposed them to risks of online exploitation. The consultation group that I just mentioned did a mapping study on the issue and found that while more and more children in Western Europe attended local schools, many were still trying to follow the full Ukrainian curriculum at the same time. Nobody knew that this war would last for 3 years or more. But for most of them, this created an unsustainable burden. So we put the issue on the table, and the Ukrainian authorities did respond. The Ministry of Education developed a shorter core curriculum for children abroad. And the host countries around the table in Strasbourg, France, where the Council of Europe is located, understood better the challenges faced by those children and the need to balance, on the one hand, the face-to-face education and integration in the local system, but on the other also the connection to their mother tongue and their cultural identity. Let me also share what we learned when the consultation group held a hearing on the impact of war on children with disabilities. We examined in a study the stories of more than 20 children in Ukraine and in Poland, so displaced to Poland. And their testimonies reflect two different worlds. In Ukraine, children live under constant threat. Bombing, air raid, sirens, crumbling infrastructure. Some families did not evacuate just because they have a child with a disability and they did not know how to organize their lives elsewhere. But also back home, access to the special education, physiotherapy and basic care has become more difficult. Children using wheelchairs, for example, can't attend the schools because they cannot use the stairs to go to the bomb shelter. In Poland, the material situation of the children who had been evacuated was better, but there were different stresses. They were worried about being accepted, about making friends, about understanding the doctors who speak a different language. But across both groups, one theme shines through: the importance of family. Access to healthcare is another common concern that the consultation group looked into. As one child here in Ukraine said, it's hard to get the equipment I need. Whether in Ukraine, however, or in the displacement, children report very similar problems. Long waits, confusing administrative systems, professionals who don't speak the way they understand. We heard a similar quote from a child in Poland, not because the material wasn't there, but because of the bureaucratic hurdles to access it. So if our systems are already not sufficiently designed for the needs of children with disabilities during peacetime, you can imagine how much harder it is during war. Another focus of our work is on children who arrived from Ukraine without parental care. At one of our meetings, we listened to the testimony of the director of an organization from Mariupol, a city in the east of Ukraine, which is now under Russian occupation, who evacuated nearly 90 children under her guardianship to Switzerland. We also heard the stories of Ukrainian foster and adoptive mothers who relocated to Switzerland and Latvia. They were all full of gratitude for the high quality of social and health services available in those countries. But they also shared how difficult it was for them to navigate through the legal and administrative systems to actually access all these services. Now that the children outside Ukraine, like here in Lithuania, are physically safe, most of the paperwork is done, we see that problems of mental health come more to the surface. And with that, we hear more about the need to trauma-informed psychological care, ideally in the Ukrainian language. And also, with the conflict going into its 4th year, clear pathways to support children who are not with their families in transitioning to adulthood. Before I continue, I suggest watching the trailer of a film made by a 17-year-old director, Timur Zapilienko, a Ukrainian young person, who tells the story of leaving his father behind and fleeing to Germany for safety.
I miss my home. I miss my friends, my family. I miss my balcony, my school. I miss Kyiv. I miss my country. Today my hometown was shelled again by the Russian military. 15 rocket launches. They hit civilian buildings. I'm living in Vilnius. That is a couple of blocks away from my home. Right now in Germany, I still feel like I don't belong here. I feel lost. Побачив відео, яке ти надіслав мені, тато. Скажи нашому стату. Я тебе люблю. Слава Україні. Героям слава. My father, he went to Iraq, he went to Afghanistan, but when you get to war in your own country, it hits you all the way. We're having this conversation, everything seems so good, and then it's all going on with this scandal.
He was routinely injured in one of the Russian bombardments.
Unfortunately, I don't know when I'm going to meet my father again, like how much time are we going to spend away from each other.
Рік тому ми були в цьому місці і почували себе дуже добре, весело. Ми були вся сім'я разом. Тепер, коли війна прийшла до нас додому, тепер ти розумієш цінність таких моментів і розумієш, наскільки ти почувався щасливо.
Якщо б в мене була можливість приїхати в Україну, то нічого цьому не заважало. Я б туди поїхав, звичайно.
We invited Timur to Strasbourg to a meeting with the consultation group where he once again emphasized the importance of, on the one hand, integrating into this new country, but on the other hand, not losing his own Ukrainian identity. For children living in the occupied territories or those abducted to Russia and Belarus, this right is under threat. In the coming months, we will start focusing within that consultation group on the issue of indoctrination, political and ideological indoctrination, which is happening in Russia. So if you know of any researchers who do work on this issue, please reach out to me. In response to such grave violations of children's rights, the right to one's cultural and linguistic identity is protected in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We in the Council of Europe also work towards ensuring accountability and justice. We became a member of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. And at the beginning of this year, the Secretary General of the Council of Europe appointed a special representative or special envoy on the situation of children of Ukraine. Also, the European Court of Human Rights continues its vital work to protecting children's rights under the European Convention. In a recent interstate case between Ukraine and the Netherlands against Russia, the court found multiple breaches of the European Convention, including for the unlawful transfer of Ukrainian children to the Russian Federation. Just before the summer, President Volodymyr Zelensky and the Secretary General of the Council of Europe launched the creation of a special tribunal to prosecute the crime of aggression against Ukraine. And finally, our member states established, the European Union, the US, and Australia also joined a register of damage to record claims seeking compensation for the damage inflicted by the aggression. And it just opened a claims category on the forcible transfer and deportation of children. To sum up, armed conflict is not only a site of direct physical violence against children. It also multiplies the potential for other harms for children. Disruption of education and healthcare, breakdown of social protection and legal safeguards, exposure to sexual violence and exploitation. So, what do we do? Let me suggest 5 points based on what we've heard. First, I think we must listen. Because children know what they need. We've heard this very well from the Lithuanian teenagers. They may not always use our terminology, but their insights are profound. Second, we must think beyond physical safety. We must, this is not a surprise to you as experts on this, recognize trauma, not punish it. We must support child protection schemes that are truly responsive, child rights based, and wherever possible offered in the children's native language. Third, we must prioritize inclusion. Every classroom should be ready to welcome a child from Ukraine. Every doctor should know how to communicate with a child with a learning disability. Every social worker should be trained to listen with empathy and patience. Fourth, we must pay special attention to children without parental care. Robust guardianship processes that respect the rights and dignity of every child. And fifth, we must protect children's right to their own language and identity. Cultural continuity is not a luxury, it's a form of protection. Children who remain connected to their culture are more grounded and hence more resilient. We should remember that we owe all children more than just survival. And no, peace is clearly not naive. For me, peace is simply a necessity, or as Antonio Guterres put it in a much more sophisticated manner, peace is the most courageous, the most practical, the most necessary pursuit of all. First and foremost, I would say for children. Thank you.